Many of you have asked me over the last few weeks to put together a list of young global leaders. There are many, there are over 1,400, and the list is extensive, but I'll do my best to put some together for you. And it is important to note that there are names that you'll easily recognize, but there are names that you won't. So I will try to expand on them a little bit more. And also, I want to expand on other arms of the World Economic Forum because it's not just the young global leaders, it's not just the global shapers, which some of you have recently found out about. There are many, many other arms, but I will start with the young global leaders and then I will touch on the other ones. Just a little bit of background for those who aren't familiar with the Young Global Leaders program. It was created by Klaus Schwab, who in 1971 founded the World Economic Forum, and they say that they are committed to improving the state of the world. The Young Global Leaders program started in 1993 under the name Global Leaders for Tomorrow, and in 2004 it was renamed to Young Global Leaders. So some notable names from the Young Global Leaders for Tomorrow program included Bill Gates, Tony Blair, Prince Frederick of Denmark, Spanish Prime Minister Jose Maria Aznar, Michael Dell of Dell, many billionaires. There was about 500 members in that 10, 11-year run. And then after the name change, since 2004, there's been 1,400 young global leaders. And candidates must be younger than 38 years of age, and there's 70 different nations, 120 different nationalities, and it has been described as the most exclusive private social network in the world, although the organization itself says that the selected leaders are just representing the voice of the future and the hopes of the next generation. So it sounds pretty promising. To me, though, this information begs the question, who is really running the show? Why do we even vote if the World Economic Forum is shaping the world? And I feel like voting is just a tool to keep us trapped in an illusion where we think that we're actually having a say in the direction that the world is going in. But most importantly, who elected Klaus Schwab to be our global dictator? And why is this a private network? If it's really about us, the people, they don't engage with us, the everyday people. They say it's going to benefit all of us. And why is the fourth industrial revolution and the plan for global governance a one-way street of announcements with no public debate or consultation? Klaus continuously talks about stakeholders. In my view, he's certainly not talking about us and, us, the majority, yet he'll brazenly say that we'll own nothing and we'll be happy. I think once anybody comes to realize the scope of the Young Global Leaders Network amongst the other networks of the World Economic Forum and their affiliates, then you'll really understand how lockstep was achieved throughout the last 2 years. And I am absolutely just convinced that COVID was used as a dry run in preparation for launching the digital economy and the climate change agenda with everything that entails. It seemed like it was a run to iron out the creases, get the infrastructure installed, infrastructure that will be required for the one world currency, and ensure that all of the key players are in lockstep, not just the young global leaders and the global shapers, but also other networks that are all interconnected with the World Economic Forum, like the UN and the Club of Rome and so on. And networks like ICLEI and CityLab and Strong Cities Network and Resilient Cities Network and Ashoka and so on. They infiltrate at a local level, getting mayors and others on board for their global vision. It's just beyond crazy. So there are several prime ministers and presidents that are currently in power who are young global leaders or have passed through the Young Global Leaders program. So we all pretty much know about Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand. So she was the class of 2014, and she's been the Prime Minister of New Zealand since 2017. And then you've got Emmanuel Macron. He's the President of France and has been since 2017. He was in the class of 2016 Young Global Leaders. And then you've got Sanna Marin, who is the Prime Minister of Finland. And she's been in that position since December 2019, and she was actually in the class of 2020. And then you have the Prime Minister of Belgium, which is Alexander De Croo, and he was in the class of 2015, and he's been the Prime Minister there in Belgium since October 2020. And then you've also got the President of Costa Rica, which is Carlos Alvarado Quesada, and he was in the class of 2019, and he's been the President of Costa Rica since 2018. Then you have former Prime Ministers as well. So David Cameron, he was the Prime Minister to the UK from 2010 to 2016, and he's not actually listed in the lookup. And I think it might be because some of them stay on as alumni and some of them don't. There also are some that are current members that don't seem to be found on the lookup. That could be for other reasons. But if you go into here, into one of their articles, you actually see that they've referenced David Cameron as a young global leader. When they ask, what do Prime Minister David Cameron all have in common? They are each a past or present young global leader who has participated in a 5-year leadership journey with the World Economic Forum, and so on and so forth. And also, speaking of former prime ministers, there's Mamuka Bakadzi. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he is the Prime Minister of Georgia. Oh, sorry, he was the Prime Minister of Georgia for about a year. And then there's also the Crown Prince of Norway. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's in there too. So very high up people in there. And there's Justin Trudeau, who's not in the lookup. So that's interesting, because although I can't find any official confirmation on the World Economic Forum website that he was a young global leader, we all know Klaus Schwab said it himself. And that was back in 2017. So, you know, I would say he probably was, but I can't say without a shadow of a doubt. Once again, there's so many arms of this World Economic Forum. Klaus could have got confused and named him as a young global leader and may have been referring to another one of their programs. But it does seem to have been confirmed by many other sources that he was a young global leader. So Michelle Rempel, who you also can't find on the lookup. So for those of you who don't know her, she was the Shadow Minister of Health in Canada until recently, and now she's the Shadow Minister for Natural Resources. So in her article, she has said, you know, she's quite proud of being a young global leader. And basically in this article, she's sort of fobbing off the fact that there's any conspiracy. Anyway, she says, you know, in Canada, Andrew Scheer is a young global leader too, and so is Justin Trudeau. And I also can't find anything on the World Economic Forum for Andrew in the lookup. So that's interesting as well. I don't know why they remove some of these people, especially if they're current young global leaders. And interestingly, it seems that Justin Trudeau's brother was a young global leader. So according to a newspaper article, 2007, it mentions that here 4 Canadians with decidedly different backgrounds have been selected as young world leaders with the greatest potential to shape the future of our planet. A World Economic Forum committee led by Queen Rania of Jordan has picked Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Rona Ambrose, comedian Rick Mercer, journalist and filmmaker Alexandra Trudeau, and social justice advocate Mark Kilberger as Canada's representatives among 250 under 40s named Young Global Leaders of 2007. So I can't find Justin Trudeau's brother on the lookup either, but this is one piece of evidence that he actually was a young global leader as well, and he's a filmmaker apparently. Now, if we just move back to the list of Canadians. So a lot of you will know who this lady is. So the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada and Minister of Finance. And we have, I'll just quickly move through these as quick as I can. Karina Gould, Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. And we've got Renee Maria Tremblay, Senior Counsel, Supreme Court of Canada. Jagmeet Singh, apparently is not a very popular guy in Canada, according to what I've been told. So he's the leader of the Democratic Party of Canada. And there's also Melanie Joly, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada. Can't find her in the lookup. However, if you go over to this article on the World Economic Forum site, it mentions here down the bottom that she was named a Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum. Once again, Andrew Scheer, the former leader of the Conservative Party there in Canada. Can't find him in the lookup, but you can actually find evidence online and mentions about it from official sources as well. And then you've got Ailish Campbell, Ambassador of Canada to the European Union for Global Affairs Canada. Also from Global Affairs Canada, you've got Alyssa Goldberg. So she's the Assistant Deputy Minister for Strategic Policy. And then we have Sean Fraser. He's the Ministry of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. And then there's also Francois-Philippe Champagne, Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry and Economic Development. And then there are a few more, just trying to make this as quick as possible because I have a lot to cover, but there are also people in other positions in technology and professors of universities. So one example would be Jessica Bergner-Kars. So she's the associate professor at the University of Toronto. And then we have people in high up banking positions such as Brett House. So he's the deputy chief economist at Scotiabank. Then there's Catherine Raw, and she's from the Barrick Gold Corporation, Chief Operating Officer. And we have Kim Horde. So she's the head of corporate sustainability at the HSBC Bank there at Canada. Also interesting one is Jolie Faulkner, and she is the Area One Farms. So she's the president and CEO of that as well. And then you've got Maya Roy, who is the CEO of YWCA Canada. And then you've also got, you know, heads of artificial intelligence, people like Jean-Francois Gagné, this guy here, so Vice President AI Canada. That I think since then he's moved on to a company called ServiceNow, which some of you might be familiar with. So I want to just flick screens. Actually, there is something I forgot to mention earlier, which is if you're Australian, you'll know this guy. His name's Greg Hunt. So he's our health minister at the moment. So he was also a global leader for Tomorrow too back in the 90s. And he was also the director of strategy at the World Economic Forum. So I just want to flick screen so I can take you back to, before I keep listing off some of these people, these politicians, I want to just take you back to the class of 2005 and 2006. And I'm just going to change screens. Okay, so I just wanted to go back to the class of 2005. That was an interesting class. There were people like Larry Page, the Google co-founder, Jack Ma, the fourth wealthiest person in China. There was a whole list there, which is so very interesting in itself, but I wanted to focus on Saudi Arabia. So in that same class, there was Bandar bin Khalid Al Saud, and he is an interesting character. He's a Saudi prince, a businessman. He's involved with many ventures such as media, oil, gas, chemicals. The list is endless. And yeah, he's from the House of Saud, which is the royal family of Saudi Arabia, the ruling royal family of Saudi Arabia. And he's not the only member of the House of Saud that was in that class. There was Mohammed bin Khalid Al Saud as well from the House of Saud. And when you look at the House of Saud and you learn about them, it's quite mind-blowing. They date back to the 1720s and even before that, but in more recent times, that's where they date back to. And it's estimated that the family comprises 15,000 members, but the majority of power, influence, and wealth is possessed by a group of about 2,000 of them. And look at this. Some estimates of the royal family's wealth measure their net worth at $1.4 trillion. That is just crazy. They run Saudi Aramco, the state oil and gas company. So these guys are the elites of Saudi Arabia. And so there's been a few from the House of Saud go through the Young Global Leaders program over the years. But just that figure, we've got Australia who's in debt around about 1.4 trillion Aussie dollars, which is a lot less than US dollars. And if you combine New Zealand and Australia, these guys would still have more wealth than our debt. They could pretty much buy our countries. And, you just look at the magnitude of difference, that example of, if a million seconds is 12 days, then a billion seconds is 31 years and a trillion seconds is 31,688 years. So, there's 1,000 billions in a trillion. And we look at somebody like Jack Ma, the fourth wealthiest person in China with 34 billion US dollars. And that's mind blowing. But these guys are just loaded. And Saudi Arabia is, very connected with the World Economic Forum. You've also got Rima bint Bandar Al Saud from the House of Saud, and she went through the Young Global Leaders program in 2015. And, they've got media and government people that have gone through the program as well. So one example is Faisal, this guy here in the middle, Minister of Economy and Planning. And there's also Faisal Abbas as well. So he's in the media. He's the editor-in-chief, Young Global Leader. And when you are still looking at media, you'll find that Muna Abu Sulaiman, she's a media personality and American-born Saudi businesswoman. And she's been named one of the most influential Muslims in the world and has a goodwill and was a goodwill ambassador for the UN Development Program. You've got people in finance that have gone through the program from Saudi Arabia, especially to note there's Sarah Al Suhaimi. So she's the chairperson of this one here, of the board of directors of the Saudi Stock Exchange. And in banking, you've got Khalid, can't say his last name, Al Khudair, Executive Vice President of Riyadh Bank, Saudi Arabia. And another example would be Ibrahim Al Mojal, so CEO of the Industrial Development Fund. So it's crazy. I definitely recommend looking into the House of Saud. There's some interesting things to look at there, that's for sure. Okay, so I just want to talk about this for a couple of minutes. So Black Lives Matters. There were 3 co-founders, and one of them in particular, Alicia Garza, she was actually made a Young Global Leader in 2020, which is interesting timing. So she's not in the lookup. I can't find her in the lookup, which is strange because up until recently she was in there. But I have found her on one of their articles in 2020 announcing the new Young Global Leaders. And here it is. So co-founder of Black Lives Matters, So what's interesting about this is that one of the other co-founders, Patrisse Cullors, she has outwardly admitted several times that she is a trained Marxist. And she's also said that Alicia is as well. which is interesting that that seems to be underpinning the Black Lives Matters movement, especially when you look at some of the other stuff that they've said, aside from the fact that they support the Green New Deal, which is a call for public policy to address climate change. They've talked about dismantling the organizing principle of society, rebuilding. And they've also admitted that Black Lives Matters is not just about racial issues. They've sort of encompassed so many other things too, which sounds all good in theory, committed to achieving gender equality and inclusivity. And also Alicia identifies as Jewish, even though she's a African-American. I think that might be because her stepfather is Jewish, I'm not sure. But all three of them, there's another one, Opal Tometi, they're all very wealthy people. But anyway, Patrice admits here as well, I'll just show you that she is a trained Marxist.
Patrice Cullors is a Marxist. All right, y'all. I mean, let's just talk about it. Am I a Marxist? I'm a lot of things. I do believe in Marxism. It's a philosophy that I learned really early on in my organizing career. We were taught to learn about the systems that were criticizing capitalism. We were taught to understand why there were philosophies that were criticizing capitalism. I'm working on making sure that people don't suffer. I'm working to make sure people don't go hungry. And these comments that I've received have been incredibly hurtful.
And, once again, as I always say, a lot of these people really believe what they are saying. They have been potentially brainwashed. What's also interesting is that, Patrice didn't wear a mask throughout the height of what was going on in 2020. She went to a protest, BLM protest in Hollywood in June 2020, didn't wear a mask. Media didn't bash her up over it at all. But I just found that interesting and thought that I would share that Alicia Garza is a young global leader. Okay, so I'm next just going to show you some of the other programs that the World Economic Forum run, because I'm going to run out of time. This video would go on for quite a while if I keep listing young global leaders. I have many, many more to tell you about, and I will make another video. But before we finish this one, I think it's important, if you don't already know, about these other arms of the World Economic Forum. So I think by now most of you would have heard about the Global Shapers, which began in 2011. And there's in total 14,000 global shapers that have gone through the program, and 10,000 or so active ones, 4,000 in the alumni. And it is a network of young people driving dialogue, action, and change. And, when I was looking at these guys last year, I did a lot of research on the ones who live in my country, especially. And for the most part, I really believe out of all of these programs, these guys are the most brainwashed. These guys, yes, there may be some that are, compromised, or, they come from certain families perhaps, but for the most part, these people really have been indoctrinated so much throughout their schooling and college, and they really believe they're doing something great for the future. And I was looking at one of their Facebooks one time, and their grandfather had come in and said, such and such, I'm so proud of you, because he was commenting on a post where, this global shaper had gone over to New York, and he was sitting there in a photo with Al Gore, and, talking about all the amazing things they're going to be doing. And this grandfather was just so proud. And, this young bloke was just like, thanks, Pop. And so I really do think that for the most part, these guys are really being used, but there are 10 times more global shapers than there are young global leaders. And there are a couple of global leaders that have started off as global shapers and then moved up to become young global leaders. And that's the thing with these programs. They move around. You've got different age groups for different ones in some cases. So I think definitely important for you to look into who your global shapers are in your local community and seeing how they're all interconnected with things that are related to climate change. It's all about climate change. It's all about a digital economy, and they're also interconnected. And you'll find the same thing no matter what city you're looking at, you'll come up with the same results. So moving forward to the Schwab Foundation. So you probably haven't heard the term. We've got the social innovators or social entrepreneurs, but they're known as the world changers. So it's described by Klaus as the sister organization to the World Economic Forum, which is ran through the Schwab Foundation. And here you'll find a mostly older age group. So, and, you know, it all sounds great. You know, they're doing great work, global community. They have awards and all of that, you know, every year. And these people feel like they're doing a great job. And then you have those who are guiding the world changes. So under our people, you will find Hilda Schwab, and that's Klaus's wife. And you'll find the Queen of Belgium, and you will find the Abu Dhabi Crown Prince, Court Endowed Chair in Societal Progress from INSEAD, and you'll find Nicole Schwab, and you'll find the former Prime Minister of Denmark. So they are all in there. Interesting program to look into. I will cover it more in future videos, but I just want to briefly go over all of them for now. Then you have agenda contributors. So they're people like Greta Thunberg. So she's not old enough to be a young global leader, you know, and at the time wasn't old enough to be a global shaper, but she does work very closely with some global shapers. So she's a contributor. You know, she talks at Davos, and she has, you know, articles that she submits and has a lot of input. And there's people like Tony Blair that are agenda contributors as well, George Soros, and there's so many other climate activists. Plus you've got heads of banks and corporations as well that are agenda contributors. And then you've got the Global Leadership Fellowship Program. So that was launched in 2005, and they say that the Global Leadership Fellows Program, or the GLFP, of the World Economic Forum is a commitment to making change happen. So by developing system leaders for public-private cooperation, it's about shaping the future and working together with all stakeholders of global society. And if you do want to be a fellow, then you need to have a master's degree in any discipline from any institution that has been accredited, and a high level of intellectual curiosity and humility, and 48 years of full-time work experience. So the recruits actually become full-time World Economic Forum employees. And there's about 30 every year that get chosen. So that's another arm. And then you've got the Global Innovators, which I will. So Global Program. And this is an invitation-only group of the world's most promising startups and scale-ups that are at the forefront of technological and business model innovation. So very interesting program to look at. You know, like with all of it, when you look at the partners of these programs and the partners of the World Economic Forum, you start to see a pattern with who these people are, who they're connected to, the companies they're connected to. So even though they're a part of networks, so they're not necessarily directly, all of them aren't getting paid by the World Economic Forum, they're working parallel to it, but they're still, you know, you can see why they're the stakeholders, because their companies are making a heck of a lot out of them being involved. So yeah, you can go through BlackRock and Bloomberg, and you know, they used to say Facebook in there, but now it's Meta. You know, they're all in on it, and you can see really how they're able to all be in lockstep with each other. And the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, look into that as well. Very interesting. Yeah, so I guess, guys, I'm probably just going to leave it here for now. I just want to tell you, just in closing, that, everything on here that, if you do take the time to go through it, I think you'll find that everything's all in the name of going green. It's all about a better world. It's all about pretending to be about the environment. And those same corporations are expecting us all to believe that now they want to save the planet with the technology rolled out so fast before we can even possibly know the long-term side effects. And as Klaus said, this is going to happen like a tsunami. And I just don't see where the intelligence is in that. And it just seems to be frowned upon to question it or want to discuss it unless we are praising it. And we've pretty much just been pushed into a society where we're automatically opted into everything, and we have to go through so much hassle to opt out. It just seems so deliberate. And, if we're even granted permission to opt out of something that we never signed up for, we can be excluded from certain things, certain services or opportunities. And it's becoming more and more that way. And, recently I was on the World Economic Forum website and I came across an article saying that we need to learn to unlearn. And I was just blown away, what psychological manipulation that, after studying cults and things like that in the past, I just looked at that and I thought, wow, that these ideologies, they're really being used on us. And I think for the most part, there's a lot of good people that are being caught up in this. And that's probably the key here. You can't have everybody that's in on it. You really need to have people who actually think that they're doing something good for it to be successful, for them to achieve it. And, you've got economists and futurists and super funds and banking and CEOs of biotech medical companies, pharmaceutical companies, oil, chemicals, so many members of parliament and secretaries for government, ministers, and, in Canada, the House of Commons, and education, technology, and then the companies, with the artificial intelligence and media. It just goes on and on, the NGOs, the United Nations. And I also find with the young global leaders that a lot of them that are from foreign countries were schooled abroad and generally were at very prestigious universities. But, most importantly, they're all huge advocates for fighting climate change, and they're very supportive of globalization. So, I think when we talk about the one world religion, which is a part of this one world order, I'm fairly convinced that the new religion is climate change. It just has to be. It seems like it'll be the new God, and everything they want us to do, they'll just say it's in the name of climate change or in the name of the environment and the greater good of the planet and humanity. And the only way to eradicate wars between nations is for us to have a one world digital currency and global governance. And the climate crisis really, I think, is just packaging around world domination. It just has all the constructs of a cult, and it's all being rolled out to us by the corporate giants, under the guise of sustainability. And the same people and institutions that brought us everything that is wrong with the world are the very same ones that are backing these solutions to the problems they created. And it's in the name of climate change, in the name of navigating the path to net zero, the Green New Deal, and just constantly using fear and phrases like, if we don't act now, global governance and, totalitarianism has just been smartly packaged in something we care about. It's just constantly referred to as the climate crisis, or once you delve into this, you'll notice more words like resilient, sustainability, equitable, equity, strengthening, and smart cities being used over and over again. And if you check out their Twitter feeds, a lot of these young global leaders, they're all tweeting about the same thing. And yeah, the World Economic Forum has just really intertwined itself over the last 50 years like a huge spider web throughout the world. And it's just packaged in this wrapping that they want to improve the world. And like I said before, like no doubt they're using very good intention, well-meaning people to carry out something very different to what it's sold as. there really are a lot of players in this game that are innocent and they really do believe the narrative. So the next video, I want to go through those intelligence maps and just give you a bit of rundown on them. And I will go back to listing some of these, some more of these young global leaders. Thank you for listening.